Jean Chamberlain Froese was a doctor living in Hamilton, Ontario, who one day simply decided that the number of mothers dying in childbirth in Africa was unacceptable. And so, for 8 months a year, for many years now, Dr. Jean and her family up and moved to Uganda, where she spends her time trying to ensure that the delivery day for Ugandan mothers isn't also their last day on earth. She describes those who are dedicated to that cause in her new book. It's called Game Changers: True Stories about Saving Mothers and Babies in East Africa. And Dr. Jean Chamberlain Froese joins us now for more. Lovely to see you again.
Great to see you also. Thank you.
When you last visited us, it was almost 3 years ago, you told us some of the facts that you are dealing with on a daily basis over there. For example, that if you're a mother giving birth in an East African nation, you are 16 times more likely to die than somebody here. Is that still the case?
Unfortunately, it is, but we're seeing change, Steve. I think the one big change we see is people realize that that's not how it should be. And I think anytime we want to see health improve for whatever area it is, we need to have people on the ground realize that, you know what, it shouldn't be this way.
We will get to those people on the ground, but I wonder why, despite all of your efforts and the efforts of so many, not enough progress has been made.
Well, it's interesting. I spoke with former Prime Minister Harper about that very thing, and I know he's a little bit discouraged that things aren't changing. But, you know, I reflect, my grandmother, she didn't even finish basically secondary school. I think she finished around grade 8, and then she had to go to the farm. When she was born, couldn't even vote. And so, you know, and this is in Canada. So it's taken 2 generations to see the change of, you know, people like myself who've gone to school, 12 years of post-secondary education. So, you know, we love to see things change in 3 years, but really it takes intergenerational change for that to happen.
And you just got to keep at it.
You just have to keep at it. Yeah.
The name of your book is The Game Changers. What is the game you are trying to change?
Well, the game that we're trying to change is that every mother deserves a safe and a dignified delivery, that she shouldn't die from childbearing complications, and that her baby should also be safe.
And who are the game changers?
Well, the game changers have to be the people within the country. You know, as a skilled Canadian obstetrician, I spent, again, 12 years training to be an obstetrician, but I'm not the solution to go over and try to deliver as many babies as I can. It really has to be the people in the countries who recognize that mothers can be saved, be trained themselves, and many of them are trained, but they don't have the tools in their hands, or the mothers simply don't come because they don't realize how important it is.
Do they have the kind of med schools there to create their own Dr. Jeans over there?
Well, interestingly, they do, and I know numerous Dr. Jeans that are there, and in fact, many of them are more competent in some of the complications that you'll see in East Africa that we just simply don't deal with here. So they're very skilled doctors, and of course, you don't need doctors to actually deliver babies. The real answer there is midwives, and there are many midwives, but again, are the midwives being placed in these rural healthcare facilities? Are they being supported? Are they being given a salary? And if they're not, then the whole system starts to break down. And I think that's really what we're trying to talk about in the book, The Game Changers, is how do you change a system that for so long has gone on and neglected women and children. And so how do you help to bring change to that?
So you've asked the question, do you have the answer?
We have the answers, but implementation of the answers is always challenging, and it takes time. This is a culturally seeded issue.
What does that mean?
What that means is how women are treated has a lot to do with how the culture in general views them. And if women are to be child bearers, if women are to be carrying the water, if they're the ones that are supposed to be doing all the domestic work and to be seen but not heard, then you're basically gonna have a situation where women's lives are not valued. You know, I just recently heard of a woman who, one of our game changers actually is associated with, she's had 34 children, Steve, 34 children. 34 herself.
One woman has had 34 kids.
Children, and our team just went out recently to visit this lady. And you might say to yourself, well, that is unbelievable. But you know what? In a culture where your only value can sometimes be how many children you have, you just keep producing children because you fear that your husband is going to go off and find another wife if you don't have enough children. So again, it's a very culturally sensitive area. Women need to see the value in who they are and to have the joy of raising children that they can look after, that they can educate, and that those children grow to be adults and then they can look after their mothers.
You will forgive my curiosity on this. What country was that in?
That was in Uganda.
That was in Uganda. Did all of her children live?
I'm not sure of all the details. I've seen the numbers that she's had. She's had triplets, quadruplets. I mean, it hasn't been 34, you know, but it's been a lot of triplets and quadruplets. So there's something different about her physiology that's allowing her to have that many multiples. But I guess my point is, it's more, she sees herself only as valuable as long as she's continuing to put out children.
So tell me about a game changer. Who's somebody over there who's kind of inspired you because you think that they see they know where the finish line is and they want to get there?
Well, the one that I really love to tell about is a journalist, actually, Steve, because I think sometimes people don't make that connection is, how can a journalist impact safe motherhood? I think of Kathy Kizimusigwa, who is the second in charge of the leading newspaper in Uganda. And she took the Save the Mothers program, and as part of her research, actually went and looked at how much media was being covering this whole issue of unsafe motherhood, when meanwhile every day there was like 18 women dying of a pregnancy-related complication. She found one article in the two main newspapers over 3 months. And since then, she has made it her life goal to be training other journalists, to influencing the media. She's now the second in charge of the leading newspaper there. She was kind of mid-management when she first started this program, but because of the program and the training that she's taken, people realize, wow, this lady really has something. And Steve, it was the greatest privilege for me to be at a conference, an international conference called Women Deliver. I'm sitting in the audience, and there's Kathy up there speaking about what she's doing. And all the other journalists from all these other East African countries were like, wow, how did you do that? How did you do that? And you know what, Kathy's a very skilled person, great writer, wonderful person. But the thing is the training that she's gotten has been able to hone her skills and to hone her knowledge so that she can go out and bring real change to the game.
I confess, I thought you were going to tell me the story of a nurse or a midwife or a nurse practitioner or somebody like that, but you went for a journalist. That's interesting.
But that's who people always think needs to make the difference, is the health workers. And still people who even know about my program, they'll still say, so how many babies are you delivering? And the point is, we have to bring change to the broader system.
How cooperative would you say the Ugandan government is to your efforts?
I think they really realize that they need to be doing something, and they're looking to these game changers to help them. Numerous of these people have worked closely with the government. In fact, we have some people from the Ministry of Health who actually come out and teach in our program because they realize they need to get the message out there of how to do things differently. And it's easy for us to sit back and sort of say, well, why haven't you got your act together yet? But the challenges are huge. I mean, every time you turn around, there's other issues. I mean, they've still been fighting polio, they still fight TB, they have HIV, all of these things. And one of the biggest challenges, Steve, quite frankly, is Western and external influences on where the aid money is going. And if it's all going towards HIV/AIDS, and certainly that still is a problem in Uganda, I'm not saying that it's not, but they're the ones that get the big buildings, that get all the focus, that they get all the good people, because if you're going to make $10,000 a month working for an organization that's, doing HIV/AIDS, well, of course you're going to do that, versus if you're going to get paid maybe nothing in maternal health, well, I think everybody can do the math on that. So I think that's an important part as well, too, is that influence of, people who are meaning to do well, who can actually end up harming. I think that's why the game changers is so important, that the indigenous people themselves are making the decisions around where money is being spent, the focus for the Ministry of Health and other programs in East Africa.
We do and did have a role, though, and you referenced Stephen Harper earlier. How influential was he on this issue?
Well, it was interesting because he was a little bit despondent the other week when I was talking to him, but the thing I said to him is that, sir, the one change that has happened is people have heard of this issue. And when I started in this work 20 years ago now, Steve, I don't want to admit that, but 20 years ago, honestly, nobody had even heard of maternal mortality or mothers dying of pregnancy-related complications. So at least it's on the agenda, sorry, the pun, but it's on the agenda now. And now, just like all other movements, I use the same analogy about smoking. I mean, I can remember sitting on an airplane and people smoking in front of me versus now, my goodness, when you walk into the hospital, there's all the people who are smoking sort of 100 meters from the hospital. They're often just after surgery. They're the first ones to get up because they got their IV pole, their catheter bag, and they're out there smoking. And what has brought such a change to our society over, really 30, 40 years,
I was just going to say,
it's because of legislation, it's because of education, it's because of advocacy. And that's what it's going to take to change the game. And I would say smoking, much as it is a habit and an addiction for some people, this issue of women's rights is a cultural issue as well, too. It's even deeper than somebody's need to smoke.
There's no question when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, his personal interest in this issue helped put it on the country's agenda. I think that's very fair to say. Do you know whether or not there's anybody in the current government, which admittedly is still relatively new, but has been in for 14 months now, 13 months? Is anybody equally seized of the issue?
Well, I think they're trying to continue the momentum. I mean, it would be a tragedy to have put so many Canadian dollars into this issue. And so there is a partnership for maternal child health that's made up of numerous organizations that are doing maternal health. Save the Mothers is part of that. And so the government is helping to support that. And I think that's important as well, too, because the government can't manage everything. We've got so many talented Canadians who are giving of their time and their energy. So if the government can in some ways support them in what they're doing without doing it for them, I think that's really the best way forward. So we're looking to more calls and hopefully more funding for this really important issue. So we'll just put it out there to Mr. Trudeau and his colleagues.
Well, one of his colleaagues is the Minister of Health.
That's right.
Jane Philpott.
Yes.
You do an annual gala dinner to raise money. She used to go to it.
That's right.
I mean, she's from just 905.
But interestingly, her area is Health of Canada, not necessarily international health. So it's really in the Department of Foreign Affairs that we're more dealing with.
But still, but she used to do what you're doing now,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
She used to go overseas and
yeah.
help people out. I think one of the things that has always astonished me about this, and you'll probably tell me I shouldn't be astonished, but I still am. You don't just go, you bring your whole family with you for 8 months of the year.
That's right.
How does that work?
Well, my kids and my husband are in Uganda right now. I Skyped them yesterday. I'll Skype them tomorrow. It's a wonderful thing about technologies. But I think really, to try to change the game, it takes an investment of somebody's time. And that's really how I felt about getting this organization going, Save the Mothers, is that I needed to go and be on the ground to help it get started. Now, interestingly,
but how do you convince you got 3 kids?
Yeah, I have 3 kids. But you know what? I think you make a home for your children regardless of where you are. And we have a home for our kids. My husband has built a big asphalt pad out the back. We play hockey, if you can imagine me playing goalie hockey, every weekend, or playing football. With the Ugandan fellas, they come, here's these 25-year-old in really great shape, and here I am trying to keep up with them. But I think you have fun with your kids regardless of where you are. And I guess I just put that out to people that don't wait for circumstances to ensure that you have a fun family time, but you really invest in your kids. And that's what we've done. And I think our kids, the hilarious thing that one of my daughters said to Tom, because she was kind of comparing what some things that her classmates here in Canada, because the kids do go to school for a couple of months while they're here, but one of her classmates was going away, and she says to Tom, we go nowhere. We don't go anywhere. And Tom just laughing, because you think there's, honestly, I don't think there's many Canadian kids that have been on as many planes as my kids have. But,
no kidding.
Yeah. But there'll be global kids, and already they talk about coming back to Uganda and East Africa when they're older, and I'm sure they will.
How old are they now?
So Hannah's almost 11. She's our Ugandan daughter, and then Jonathan's 11, and Elizabeth's 13, going on 18.
13 going on 18.
Now taller than I am too, which is really now I look up to her. So.
No offense, Dr. Jean. That's not saying that much.
I know it's not. People can't see that, but it's true.
Given that you spend more time of the year in Africa than in Canada, do you still feel connected to this country?
Every time I hear the Canadian national anthem, it makes you realize what we have as Canadians, Steve. We don't worry about health care. If my child's sick, I just take them into the doctor, versus in these places, you don't. You don't worry about somebody storming into your house and robbing you and destroying your family. I mean, all of these things that, we just don't think about. In the morning, you send your kids off to school, and you don't worry about having school fees. Literally, when I get back to Uganda, there will be so many people knocking on my door. Dr. Jean, can you help me with school fees for my kids? These kids are just going to primary school. I'm not talking about university, I'm just talking primary school. So really, the privilege that we have in this country is fantastic, and I think it's a great opportunity for us, those of us that are privileged, and all of us as Canadians is to, speak for those who have no voice, for the rights of all who are destitute. And that's, really one of my verses for my life, and it just keeps challenging me. We do have a voice, no matter how underprivileged we may think we are as Canadians, and everybody obviously has a different role in life, but I think each one of us can do something. And that's really what we're trying to do with the Save the Mothers program, is to really bring that kind of value to East Africans so that they can realize, I can make a change in my culture. I don't have to let this fall down from the sky and determine my destiny. There's actually something that I can do. And that's really been the beauty of seeing 450 people in this program. Just each one of these leaders that are in this book, and I hope people take the time to order the book and read through it, because sometimes we just get so despondent. Africa, it's all bad news stories. These are good news stories. These are people that are making a difference, and it doesn't take Canadians to keep the thing going. They are out there making the difference. Available on the Save the Mothers website. It is. It's also on. Sorry, I'm blanking on our Amazon.com.
Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Amazon.ca, and it's also on .com as well too. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I know from that snowflake that Canada loves you, and I know you
And you
love
also.
Canada. So good for you for your Order of Canada. And as always, it's great to see you again, and keep on keeping on.
Great. Thank you so much.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.